and I had 23 questions. And I went to Charlie, spent 2 weeks with him, stayed with him, flying home, and I pull out the piece of paper, and I didn't have one question answered, but every question was the wrong question.
You have your 57 lessons book too, but like, what were some of the lessons? You know, you don't have to give away any of that content, but like, you know, roughly in the different sports that you learned and for our listeners to be able to apply to.
Well, I think for a young strength coach coming through, the first one was moving from one sport to another. For me, I was pissed off. I was upset. I was annoyed because I wanted to stay in a sport and get better at it. And so I started in the Premier League, then I went to international rugby, and I wasn't happy. But then slowly after a few months, it dawned on me the difficulty in learning a new sport and understanding it. That was a huge learning moment. And so, and then I went back to soccer again, and it started to dawn on me. I learned more changing and in difficult moments than I did staying in one place. And it's so uncomfortable and it's so difficult. And so when young coaches, you know, have to change job, lose a job, move, don't look at it as a setback. Look at it as the best learning opportunity you're going to get. The other big thing for me was when I started, there wasn't. I know I look like I'm only 27. I'm actually 45. I look younger than all of you, but. When I started,
you look way better than me.
When I started, there was no industry, so there wasn't, not in the same way, like there wasn't a deluge of information. Yeah. There was Dan Paff, Louis Simmons, Charlie Francis, Al Vermeil, Henk Kraaienhof, Ashley Jones. So what I do, I would save my money in a small brown envelope. When I had enough money, bought a plane, sent an email, bought a plane ticket, and flew. I remember going to New Zealand, like I flew halfway around the world.
Really?
Spent 2 weeks. Then I went to Canada to Charlie Francis. Like, and I didn't have a lot of money. I was a student.
Were you? I was about to say, were you young? Like, how did you do that with a family?
I was in my 20s. Like I remember getting a cab to Chula Vista to spend time with Dan Paff because I wanted to understand biomechanics, right? And I'm staying in a Motel 6, I think it was. I don't think I slept that night.
Because you were so excited.
No, I was scared.
So afraid.
I was so afraid. And I don't think I was worried that I wouldn't have enough money to get a cab back to the hotel. Like, you mean?
Oh my goodness!
Like,
wow, you're strong, man.
Every single there isn't a. I wrote down a list of who were the best people in the world, and went and visited them. There isn't.
As you should, man. Anybody that's listening. In my opinion, and I will agree with what Keir said, this is not my original words. I'm quoting the man himself. Get the minimum requirements so they can hire you. And that is what you need to do. What Fergus said, learn. Like, that's what we're trying to do with Strength Coach Network. We're trying to bring them to you if you cannot go and fly and travel, and we can maximize this platform, but learn from coaches with skin in the game. Go do what Fergus just said.
Like, you know, and you build, and the big advantage is when you spend time with them, you know, there are things that I can publish, but there are things I can't. There are things I can say, but there are things I can't. When you spend time with somebody one-on-one, they can tell you everything else. Do you know? And I'm not talking about bad stuff. I'm just talking about stuff that's, like, you know what I mean? And also, I remember flying to Charlie Francis, and I had bought every book, had read every video, or watched every video, and I had 23 questions. And I went to Charlie, spent 2 weeks with him, stayed with him. He was brilliant. And I remember flying home, and I pull out the piece of paper, and I didn't have one question answered, but every question was the wrong question. I was asking the wrong questions. And when I get there and I start to understand the biggest thing with, for example, a Dan Paff or a Henk Kraaienhof or any of those guys, is understanding how they think. You know, I remember I went to Portugal to learn from the guy Vitor Frade, the father of tactical periodization.
Let's go.
And I had to pay a translator to sit. I remember one time the translator went to the restroom. He doesn't speak English. I don't speak Portuguese. And we sit there looking at each other for 15 minutes, just like politely, lovely, lovely gentleman. Nobody had heard of him at the time. And I'm just sitting there waiting for the chance. And then we start again and we go again, painstakingly going through learning, but find people who've skin in the game. And the two questions I would always ask is, who have you learned from, and what have you read, and who have you learned from? Those are the last two questions you want to ask, and then so find the people that they have learned from, if you really want to know.
I mean, that sounds a lot like Fernando. That sounds a lot like what we did with Jeff Moyer, and how he was talking about, be what's new is old, and how, do your history lesson in strength and conditioning. And it sounds
That's
like
a great
that.
line.
Yeah, right. Like,
do your history lesson.
Yeah,
because what you'll start to notice, are eventually the same 10 or 11 names will come up from different pathways. They'll all come back to 10 or 11 names, and those are the people you need to learn from.
No, 100%. And like, that's where you start to dive down those rabbit holes, and you start to be like, hey, these people were like really influential. And then that's how you can start to, give people credit where credit is due. And that was kind of Fernando's biggest thing, was like, give people credit where credit is due. Don't say you're creating something that was talked about a long time ago. Like, study the past, honor it. And it sounds like that's exactly what you're doing right now. You're coaching the coaches, right? Like, that's something that I remember. Gosh, why can't I remember his name? He was a strength. Chris McCormick was talking about how great of an influence you were on his life, helping him learn how to be a better coach, to coach the coaches and manage and do all that. Can you talk about
but not to take, I don't want to take credit
run with it
because like I said, guys like Ashley Jones or Louis or Alvar Meal or Dan, like they help me. You have a duty to help others, and there's nothing that I've created that's original. But the one thing I did not have was, I couldn't find a resource for team sport. So I want to win in team sport. I don't want to be the best strength coach. I don't want to be the best sports scientist. I don't want to be the best nutritionist, psychologist. I want to how do I pull everything together and win in soccer, rugby, NFL, college? That was what. Remember going to Australia? I went to Australia 2 or 3 times to learn. And you'd go to AFL clubs, rugby club. I would go anywhere. If you told me that there was a painter who could teach me something. I remember going studying color. Went to find the 3 best vision experts. There's a lovely lady called Gail Stevenson, who worked with Manchester United, and going to spend time with her to learn, to understand how colors colors on jersey design impacted vision, what was the important things and what weren't. Like, I would go anywhere to learn. If I could improve a team, I would go anywhere. Often people find themselves in poor environments, and there's one guy now in the NBA, another in the NFL. And I remember I was mentoring them, but they were calling me. They were in difficult teams previously, and they were not happy. And I remember saying to both of them at the time, look, guys, I know it's tough, I know it's difficult, but there's so much around you to learn how not to do things. Don't stop sitting there thinking that you're not learning. There's actually a lot to learn. You're just not looking for that learning moment. The other point you made about life experience, I remember one time, I think it was at Michigan, somebody had applied for a strength job, and somebody in the office was reading the resumes, and they started to laugh at how, somebody had written down in previous experience how they'd worked at McDonald's or one of the fast food chains. And I was going, no, let me see that resume. I don't want to hire people who have just come through an echo chamber, a silo of sports science, strength and conditioning, read the same books, done. I can find that. Every strength coach has come through like this one kind of echo chamber. Yeah. I want people who have some variety, and particularly in the service industry, because you have had to deal with a different demographic. Like if you go to university and you're just surrounded by people who have the same intelligence, read the same books, done the same things as you, you're going to step out of that, go into a different area and have to deal with a different type of person. I want people who've worked with or been around different cultures, different environments. That's an incredibly valuable skill.
Congratulations on making it to the end of the video. Why don't you celebrate by watching more videos just like it? You can also help us on our quest to placate the algorithm gods by liking, sharing, subscribing, and commenting. Thank you.